Do you remember when having a US passport felt like holding a golden ticket? That perception is rapidly fading in 2025. A quiet but significant shift is taking place. Countries that once eagerly welcomed Americans are now withdrawing that hospitality and, in some cases, firmly closing the door behind them. From increasingly strict visa regulations to direct deportations, US citizens are finding themselves unwelcome in places they once considered safe havens. Even long-standing allies like Canada, Mexico, and Germany are beginning to put tighter limits on American presence. This isn't driven by hostility, it's about self-preservation. Mounting economic pressures, housing shortages, and political tensions are prompting governments to re-evaluate American migration. Suddenly, Americans are no longer seen as welcome guests. They're being perceived as part of the problem. What's especially alarming is that many Americans living abroad remain unaware of the changing climate until they're abruptly notified. So what happened to the world's most powerful passport? Let's explore the top 10 countries where Americans are increasingly unwelcome in 2025. Because global rejection rarely comes with a warning. Number 10. Canada. For decades, Canada was the backup plan for Americans seeking a more peaceful lifestyle, access to universal healthcare, or simply the comfort of a polite northern neighbor. But in 2025, the warm reception Americans once received is beginning to cool. Anyone who's tried immigrating to Canada this year will tell you it's become significantly more difficult. Financial eligibility requirements have risen, immigration processing times have lengthened, and, for the first time in decades, Americans are being rejected at unprecedented rates. According to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, visa denials for U.S. applicants have increased by 19% compared to 2022. The message is unmistakable. Canada is becoming selective, even when it comes to its closest ally. So, what's driving this change? It comes down to affordability, healthcare system strain, and a surge in global migration. Many Canadians are growing concerned that they're being priced out of their own cities. Wealthy American remote workers are seen as contributing to this trend. In Vancouver, housing prices jumped 8% in just 1 year. In Nova Scotia, local communities have organized protests against American buyers who are acquiring lakefront properties at high prices. Prince Edward Island has even implemented restrictions on foreign real estate investment to protect local housing. But it's not only about economics. Cultural friction is also at play. Many Canadians believe that recent U.S. political discourse is seeping across the border, and they aren't pleased with the influence. A 2024 poll conducted by Abacus Data revealed that 61% of Canadians support enhanced border screening for Americans. The assumption that Canadians and Americans are fundamentally the same is no longer valid. Even U.S. citizens married to Canadians are experiencing issues with visa renewals. These developments indicate not an outright ban, but a subtle, steady shift. A door that once stood wide open is slowly closing. If you're dreaming of maple syrup, snowy peaks, and a new life in the north, you might want to double-check the current regulations. In 2025, Canada isn't just politely declining, it's beginning to say, no. Number 9. Mexico. At first glance, Mexico continues to look like the perfect getaway for Americans. Beautiful beaches, affordable living, and vibrant culture. What's not to love? Today, over 1.6 million Americans live in Mexico, the largest community of U.S. expats anywhere in the world. But beneath the surface, the relationship is shifting, and not in America's favor. In popular destinations like Mexico City, San Miguel de Allende, and Tulum, rental prices have doubled in under 5 years. Much of the blame is directed at the flood of American remote workers and retirees, who are believed to be inflating housing costs. In response, the Mexican government has begun tightening immigration enforcement. In 2024, deportations of Americans overstaying tourist visas reached their highest level since 2005, according to Mexico's National Migration Institute, INM. Previously lenient immigration policies have been replaced with more rigorous checks, visa inspections at airports, targeted sweeps in neighborhoods, and even raids on Airbnbs suspected of hosting unauthorized visitors. This shift is about more than just policy. It reflects a growing tension. In tourist-heavy areas, protests are becoming more common. Banners that read, "This is not your playground," are a clear indication of local frustration. Residents are demanding rent controls and protections for working-class Mexican families displaced by American wealth. One viral incident in Oaxaca highlighted this sentiment when a local cafe posted a sign stating, "Americans pay double." The move ignited fierce debate. Some called it discriminatory, others hailed it as a stand against economic displacement. Even digital nomads, once celebrated for contributing to the local economy, are now increasingly viewed as gentrifiers. For many Americans who are not legally allowed to work in Mexico or who fail to pay local taxes, the dream of a cheap tropical life is losing its luster. And with elections approaching in both countries, immigration is once again at the forefront of national debate. Mexico isn't issuing mass deportation orders, but the new message is unmistakable. Showing up without a plan or a permit no longer guarantees a warm welcome. The honeymoon phase is over. For Americans treating Mexico as a low-cost alternative to home, 2025 might be the year they receive a very real wake-up call. The welcome mat is no longer meant for everyone. Number 8. Germany. Germany was once one of the most inviting European destinations for Americans. It offered efficiency, modern infrastructure, and appeal for families, students, and professionals alike. But in 2025, those open doors are increasingly harder to push through. Americans trying to relocate there are finding it more difficult than ever before. The country's long-standing appeal, free university education, affordable healthcare, and a safe, clean environment, has attracted thousands of U.S. expats over the years. Cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich became hubs for tech talent, artists, and young families in search of a more balanced life. That dream, however, is growing more elusive. Germany is tightening its immigration and residency policies, particularly for non-EU citizens like Americans. Even obtaining a basic freelance visa now demands detailed proof of long-term contracts with German firms, fluency in the German language, and several months' worth of financial reserves. Opportunities for students are also narrowing. Scholarships and university placements are increasingly reserved for EU citizens. Compounding the difficulty is a nationwide housing crisis. In Berlin and Frankfurt, rent prices have soared, increasing by more than 40% since 2020. Many Germans blame this on foreign investors and wealthy expats, including Americans, who are purchasing property and driving up real estate costs. This frustration is reflected in local politics, where anti-gentrification protests and stricter housing regulations are on the rise. There's also a cultural adjustment to consider. Germany's deeply bureaucratic system is built on punctuality, strict rules, and long administrative waits. For Americans accustomed to faster processes and casual communication, this environment can feel alienating, especially for those who don't speak the language. Number 5. Portugal. Portugal has long been a dream for Americans seeking sun, safety, and a slower pace of life. Its Golden Visa program, warm climate, and charming coastal towns made it one of the hottest relocation spots over the last decade. But by 2025, that dream is starting to fray. A housing crisis driven by foreign investment and Airbnb-style rentals has sparked a public backlash. In Lisbon, Porto, and along the Algarve coast, home prices have skyrocketed, making it nearly impossible for locals to afford rent or purchase property. American expats, many of whom moved to Portugal during the COVID-era remote work surge, are being blamed, fairly or not, for worsening the problem. In response, the Portuguese government ended its Golden Visa program in urban centers, increased taxes on foreign property buyers, and placed new restrictions on short-term rentals. Meanwhile, locals are staging protests, decrying the colonization of their neighborhoods. Some graffiti in Lisbon reads, "Foreigners out," or "This isn't your Instagram backdrop." Bureaucratically, it's also getting tougher. Residency permits are harder to secure, and delays in the SEF, the Immigration and Border Services Agency, have left thousands of Americans stuck in limbo. Some who moved under the D7 passive income visa have found it harder to renew, as income thresholds are now higher, and stricter background checks are in place. Language requirements for permanent residency and citizenship have also been tightened, catching many Americans off guard. What used to be a tranquil, budget-friendly haven is becoming more complicated. The welcome hasn't vanished, but it's no longer unconditional. Portugal is still open to Americans, but only those who are willing to integrate, follow evolving laws, and avoid contributing to local economic strain. Number 4. Japan. Japan has always been a country that fascinates Americans, with its deep traditions, futuristic cities, and high quality of life. But admiration doesn't always translate to open arms. In 2025, Japan remains highly selective about who it allows to stay long-term, and the bar is especially high for Americans. The immigration system favors skilled labor, particularly in specific sectors like healthcare, engineering, and IT. Even then, the process is rigorous, requiring employer sponsorship, proof of Japanese language proficiency, and background checks that leave little room for error. Tourists are still welcome, but long-term stays are a different story. In recent years, there's been growing pushback against the rising number of foreign residents, especially in major cities like Tokyo, Osaka, and Fukuoka. Housing discrimination is a real issue. Many landlords refuse to rent to foreigners, and some neighborhoods quietly resist foreign tenants by raising rents or requiring additional deposits. Americans, even those with jobs and legal visas, often face extra scrutiny. Japan's cultural expectations further complicate things. The country emphasizes harmony, quiet, and conformity, values that sometimes clash with the louder, more individualistic tendencies of Western expats. Missteps in etiquette, such as speaking loudly in public or disregarding mask-wearing norms, have caused friction. Online, Japanese forums have seen increased complaints about loud foreigners, particularly Americans, in public spaces. Then there's the bureaucratic maze. Americans married to Japanese citizens report increased difficulty in renewing spouse visas, especially if they lack a consistent job or Japanese language skills. The pandemic also left scars, with Japan having one of the longest entry bans for foreigners, an action that many American residents haven't forgotten. In short, Japan is not closing its doors, but it is making it clearer than ever that long-term residency comes with high expectations. Respect the culture, follow the rules, and be prepared to adapt, or face a quiet, yet firm, rejection. Number 3. Australia. Australia was once seen as a natural destination for Americans seeking a new life abroad, English-speaking, sunny, and boasting high quality of life. But in 2025, moving to Australia as an American is anything but easy. The country has overhauled its immigration policies in the wake of economic pressures and domestic demand for housing and services. Visa categories have become more exclusive, targeting skilled labor in industries where shortages exist, but only with substantial proof of long-term benefit to Australia. For Americans without highly specialized qualifications, permanent residency is increasingly out of reach. Student visas are harder to obtain, and the requirements for work sponsorship have become tougher. And for digital nomads or retirees hoping to settle down in Byron Bay or Sydney, the door is virtually shut. Housing costs have soared, particularly in coastal cities. Australians now associate expat influxes with gentrification, inflated rents, and pressure on public services. Local news regularly features stories about Australians being priced out of their own neighborhoods. In response, government policies now favor citizens and long-term permanent residents over new arrivals. Even those who do manage to enter Australia legally often find themselves navigating a rigid, points-based system that can take years to yield citizenship. Culturally, there's tension as well. Australians value modesty, informality, and a fair go attitude. Some perceive American newcomers as arrogant or entitled, especially those who arrive assuming life will operate just like back home. That cultural mismatch has only added to growing social friction. So, while Australia still welcomes some Americans, the age of easy entry is over. The country now expects newcomers to earn their place and bring real, measurable value to the table. Number 2. Spain. Spain, long a favorite for American retirees and digital nomads, is signaling a change. In 2025, the Spanish government is rebalancing its immigration strategy after years of foreign buying and a massive tourism boom strained local economies. American expats, especially in cities like Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, and along the Costa del Sol, are starting to feel the heat. Like Portugal, Spain has seen skyrocketing rents and home prices, largely driven by foreign demand. In tourist-heavy zones, residents complain that neighborhoods have been hollowed out, local culture commercialized, and essential services stretched thin. Anti-tourist graffiti has popped up in several cities, and protests against mass foreign relocation are now commonplace. Spain's non-lucrative visa, NLV, once the go-to for Americans with passive income, now has tougher requirements, including higher financial thresholds, health insurance standards, and increased proof of integration. The government is also reviewing and limiting digital nomad visas, arguing that some expats are not contributing to the tax base or local economy. Moreover, tensions have risen over cultural clashes. Spaniards value local languages, long-standing traditions, and family networks. Some Americans have been criticized for forming insular communities, refusing to learn Spanish, and treating the country more like a long-term vacation than a new home. This has fueled resentment, especially in smaller towns and historically working-class areas being rapidly gentrified. While Spain is not closing its borders, it is clearly redefining who gets to stay and under what conditions. Americans who don't adapt, or who come expecting a low-cost European dream without engaging with the culture, may find the welcome mat pulled out from under their feet. Number 1. United Arab Emirates, UAE. The United Arab Emirates, particularly Dubai and Abu Dhabi, has become synonymous with luxury, opportunity, and rapid development. For years, it attracted Americans seeking tax-free income, modern amenities, and a cosmopolitan lifestyle. But in 2025, the UAE's stance toward foreign residents, especially Westerners, is becoming more transactional and less tolerant. While the UAE still offers business visas, investor opportunities, and remote work programs, the government has become increasingly vigilant about who qualifies. Americans working under the radar or violating visa terms are now being fined, blacklisted, or deported. Visa renewals are no longer automatic, and even small paperwork mistakes can trigger legal issues. Social media is also a growing hazard. Americans who post critical or culturally insensitive content about religion, local customs, or government policies can face immediate detention or deportation under the country's strict cybercrime laws. Several high-profile cases in 2024 have made headlines, where Americans were jailed for behavior that would be considered minor back home. Then there's the cost. The UAE's meteoric rise has driven up living expenses. Rents in Dubai have surged, schooling is expensive, and healthcare for non-residents comes with high premiums. The assumption that the UAE is a financial hack is proving false for many mid-income expats. Meanwhile, Emirati authorities are prioritizing citizens in business, housing, and public benefits, leaving foreigners increasingly on the margins. Culturally, the UAE expects adherence to Islamic values, especially in public behavior, dress, and speech. For some Americans, this comes as a surprise, and the consequences of missteps can be severe. While the UAE still opens its doors to global talent, it's clear that being American no longer guarantees an easy ride.